Number 1. The illusion of goodness. You were taught that being good would protect you, that honesty would be rewarded, that kindness would circle back like karma and land softly in your favor. But Machiavelli would have laughed at that lie, because power does not recognize virtue, it recognizes leverage. And the world you are living in is not governed by moral ideals but by incentives, fear, advantage, and perception. And this is why good people lose, not because they are evil's victims, but because they are predictable, exposed, and psychologically unarmed. Because goodness without strategy becomes a signal, a public declaration that says you will hesitate, that you will forgive too easily, that you will prioritize harmony over dominance, and the world is always listening for those signals, always scanning for who can be pressured, delayed, guilted, or manipulated. And when you advertise yourself as good, you unknowingly place a target on your back because systems reward compliance, not conscience. And predators don't hunt the strongest or the loudest. They hunt the most reliable, the ones who won't retaliate, the ones who still believe fairness is a shield. And Machiavelli understood this centuries ago when he warned that a ruler who relies solely on virtue will be ruined among those who are not virtuous. Because morality is not a universal contract. It is a personal choice, and the moment you assume others are bound by it, you surrender your advantage, you slow your reaction time, you give the benefit of the doubt to people who already decided to use you. And this is the brutal truth no one prepares you for. Being good does not make you safe, it makes you accessible, and the modern world quietly reinforces this trap by praising niceness while rewarding ruthlessness behind closed doors, promoting ethics in speeches while promoting aggressors in practice. And so you grow up thinking power and goodness coexist naturally, when in reality, power tolerates goodness only when it is useful, controlled, and non-threatening. And this is not cynicism, this is observation, this is pattern recognition, this is the cold awareness that the game you're in does not care about your intentions, only your position. And until you understand that goodness without boundaries is not virtue but vulnerability, you will keep losing while telling yourself you're doing the right thing, unaware that the right thing in a power-driven world is not to be good, but to be untouchable. Number 2, why morality fails in a power game. Morality collapses the moment it enters a competitive environment because morality assumes cooperation while power assumes conflict. And Machiavelli understood that most people are not defeated by enemies, but by their own false expectations, by believing others will play fair simply because they do. And this is where good people consistently lose, not because they lack intelligence, but because they confuse personal ethics with universal rules. And the world does not run on universal rules. It runs on advantage, timing, and perception. And when you walk into a power game carrying only morality, you are bringing a knife to a gunfight while convincing yourself the other side will put their weapon down out of respect. But respect is not generated by goodness. It is generated by consequence, by the quiet understanding that crossing you has a cost. And without that cost, your morality becomes nothing more than a convenience for others to exploit. Because systems reward results, not intentions, and people quickly learn that the moral person will absorb extra work, tolerate disrespect, forgive betrayal, and rationalize abuse as patience, maturity, or kindness, while the ruthless person sets boundaries through action, not explanation, and rises faster not because they are smarter, but because they do not pause to ask whether the game itself is fair. Machiavelli warned that a man who wants to survive among wolves must learn how wolves think, not to become one blindly, but to recognize when teeth are already bared. Because refusing to acknowledge danger does not make you virtuous, it makes you naive, and naivete is punished swiftly and quietly, especially in modern hierarchies where manipulation wears professional language, smiles replace threats, and exploitation is disguised as opportunity. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Morality works only when enforced by power. Without power, it is just a suggestion, easily ignored by those who understand leverage. And this is why good people are often overworked, underpaid, sidelined, or discarded, because they believe their character will speak for itself, while others speak loudly through outcomes, influence, and strategic aggression, and until you separate personal values from strategic behavior. Until you understand that being ethical does not mean being exposed, that restraint must be backed by strength, and that mercy without dominance invites disrespect. You will keep wondering why integrity feels so expensive, unaware that morality was never meant to protect you in a power game. It was meant to guide you once you were already strong enough to enforce it. Number 3, the psychology of control and compliance. Control does not begin with force. It begins with psychology, with identifying who seeks approval, who avoids conflict, who mistakes silence for peace. And Machiavelli understood that the easiest people to dominate are not the weak, but the morally overcommitted, the ones who tie their identity to being good, fair, and agreeable. Because once someone needs to be seen as good, they can be guided, delayed, and pressured without resistance. And this is why good people lose so consistently, because they outsource their power to reputation, to the hope that being liked will protect them, when in reality, likability is a currency that depreciates the moment it becomes inconvenient. And modern systems exploit this perfectly by rewarding obedience with temporary validation while extracting long-term compliance. And the good person accepts this trade unknowingly, believing patience will be noticed, that sacrifice will be remembered, that loyalty will be reciprocated. But power does not operate on memory. It operates on leverage in the present moment. And leverage belongs to those who can say no without explanation, who can withdraw cooperation without guilt, who can let discomfort exist without rushing to resolve it, because discomfort is a signal, and whoever tolerates it longer controls the interaction. And this is where masculine stoicism becomes a weapon, not emotional suppression, but emotional discipline. The ability to feel pressure without revealing it, to observe manipulation without reacting, to remain unreadable when others are scanning for weakness. And Machiavelli's brilliance was not in promoting cruelty, but in exposing the mechanics of influence. That fear is more reliable than love when stakes are high, because fear is consistent while affection fluctuates. And when people know you will enforce boundaries, they adjust their behavior without being asked. But when they know you will prioritize harmony, they test how far they can push. And each test that goes unanswered becomes a lesson, teaching them that your values are negotiable. And this is how control spreads quietly, not through domination, but through your consent, given in small, rationalized compromises, until one day you realize your life is shaped by other people's expectations. And the only way out is to reclaim authority over your reactions, your time, and your tolerance, because power is not taken from good people. It is handed away, piece by piece, in the name of being reasonable. Number 4, becoming dangerous without becoming evil. Machiavelli never argued that you should abandon morality. He argued that you should never let morality abandon you when survival and influence are on the line, because there is a difference between being evil and being capable, and good people lose when they confuse harmlessness with virtue, mistaking passivity for discipline, when in reality, discipline is the ability to act decisively and then return to calm without apology. And this is where true power begins, not in aggression, but in the knowledge that aggression is available to you if required. Because people do not respect intentions, they respect capacity, the quiet understanding that you can escalate, that you can withdraw, that you can disrupt comfort if pushed. And this awareness alone reshapes how others treat you, and masculine stoicism sharpens this edge by removing emotional leakage, by ensuring your anger does not announce itself, your fear does not negotiate on your behalf, and your compassion is offered by choice, not obligation. And Machiavelli's warning was clear. Those who rely solely on goodness are destroyed by those who know when to set goodness aside, not permanently, but strategically. And this is the discipline most people lack, because it requires accepting an uncomfortable truth about yourself, that you are capable of harm, and that denying this capacity does not make you safer. It makes you blind, because the man who refuses to acknowledge his shadow is controlled by it, while the man who integrates it decides when it is unleashed. And becoming dangerous does not mean becoming cruel. It means becoming unpredictable. No longer easy to read, no longer easy to corner, no longer governed by guilt when enforcing boundaries. And this shift is subtle but profound. Because once people realize that your cooperation is conditional, not guaranteed, they stop exploiting your patience and start negotiating with your strength. And this is where goodness regains its meaning. Not as a weakness, but as a choice made from a position of power. Because mercy that cannot be withdrawn is not mercy. It is submission, and kindness without consequence is not virtue. It is convenience. And the moment you become capable of causing disruption but choose restraint, your presence alone changes the room. And this is the point Machiavelli was always driving toward. Not to create monsters, but to prevent good men from being devoured by them. Number 5, power, silence, and the final choice. Here is the final truth Machiavelli would leave you with if he were speaking directly to you now. The world does not change when you become good. It changes when you become consequential, because power is felt most strongly when it does not need to announce itself. When your silence carries weight, when your absence creates problems, when your approval is no longer automatic, and this is where good people stop losing, not by becoming loud, aggressive, or cruel, but by becoming selective, controlled, and strategically distant. Because the most untouchable individuals are not those who dominate every interaction, but those who cannot be easily predicted, pressured, or emotionally hijacked. And once you reach this stage, you realize that power is not about winning arguments or proving moral superiority. It is about shaping outcomes quietly, letting others reveal their intentions while you reveal nothing, letting them overplay their hand while you conserve yours. And Machiavelli understood that visibility invites resistance, while ambiguity creates hesitation, and hesitation creates advantage, which is why the disciplined man speaks less, reacts slower, and commits only when the conditions favor him, because emotional immediacy is the enemy of strategy, and urgency is often a trap set by those who benefit from your haste. And when you step out of that trap, when you stop rushing to explain yourself, justify your values, or prove your goodness, something shifts internally. You stop seeking validation and start measuring leverage. You stop fearing disapproval and start respecting your own boundaries. And this is where Stoicism completes the transformation. Not by numbing you, but by anchoring you, by making your internal state independent of external chaos. So praise does not inflate you, and criticism does not destabilize you. And from this place, goodness finally becomes powerful again, because it is no longer demanded of you. It is chosen, offered sparingly, withdrawn without guilt, and backed by the quiet certainty that you can stand alone if necessary. And this is why Machiavelli was right. Not because goodness is wrong, but because goodness without power is a liability, and power without restraint is destruction, and the man who masters both becomes untouchable. So if this message sharpened something inside you, if it forced you to confront truths you were avoiding, then like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because in a world that rewards appearances and punishes awareness, staying sharp is not optional. It's survival. Number 6, why the world tests you first. Understand this before anything else sinks in. The world does not reward potential. It tests resistance, and good people lose early because they assume life is a judge when it is actually a pressure system, pushing first to see what bends, what apologizes, what absorbs pain quietly. And Machiavelli saw this pattern long before modern psychology gave it polite names. Because every hierarchy, every workplace, every relationship begins with small violations disguised as requests, jokes, favors, delays, and expectations. And the ones who comply without friction are not seen as virtuous. They are cataloged as flexible, manageable, expandable. And once that label is placed on you, escalation becomes inevitable. Because pressure always increases where it meets no resistance. And this is where moral people misunderstand reality, believing that enduring early discomfort earns long-term respect, when in truth, early tolerance trains others how to treat you. And the lesson they learn is not gratitude, but access. Access to your time, your energy, your labor, your patience, and eventually your identity. Because every system looks for those who will carry excess weight without complaint, and goodness without firmness makes you the ideal candidate. Not because you are weak, but because you refuse to inconvenience others even when inconvenience is the only language power understands. And Machiavelli warned that men who avoid conflict at all costs eventually lose the right to choose when conflict happens, because it will arrive anyway, just on worse terms, chosen by someone else. And this is why the first battle is never about dominance. It is about signaling limits, showing where pressure stops working, because boundaries are not announced with speeches, they are enforced through behavior. And every time you delay enforcement to preserve peace, you teach the world that peace is more important to you than position. And once that hierarchy is clear, people stop negotiating and start assigning. And this is not cruelty, this is mechanics. The same way gravity pulls on anything unsupported, power presses on anything unanchored. And until you become anchored, internally disciplined, emotionally steady, and willing to let others feel discomfort without rescuing them from it, you will remain in the testing phase forever, wondering why life keeps asking more from you while giving less in return. Unaware that the test was never about your goodness, it was about whether you would defend it. Number 7, why respect is never given freely. Respect is not a moral reward, it is a psychological response to presence, consequence, and consistency. And Machiavelli understood that people speak endlessly about respect, but respond only to signals. And the strongest signal is not aggression, but certainty. The calm confidence that does not seek approval and does not rush to explain itself. Because explanation invites negotiation, and negotiation invites pressure. And good people lose here because they over-communicate. They justify boundaries. They soften refusals. They apologize for decisions that require no apology. And each extra word reduces perceived authority because power speaks in brevity while insecurity speaks in paragraphs. And the world senses this instantly, adjusting its behavior not to your values, but to your tolerance. And tolerance without consequence becomes permission. And permission erodes respect faster than any mistake, because people can forgive errors, but they exploit availability. And Machiavelli warned that those who depend on being loved become dependent on moods they cannot control, while those who establish consequence remain stable regardless of opinion. And this does not mean becoming cold or unapproachable. It means becoming internally fixed, not swayed by praise or threatened by disapproval. Because respect emerges when others realize that access to you is conditional, that your time is not endlessly negotiable, that your standards do not shift to accommodate discomfort, and this realization forces recalibration. People either rise to meet you or drift away, and both outcomes are victories because power is not about keeping everyone close. It is about keeping the right people aligned. And this is where stoic restraint sharpens your edge, by teaching you to respond instead of react, to let silence do the work that arguments never could, to allow others to project, assume, and expose themselves while you remain composed. Because composure under pressure is interpreted as strength even when nothing is said. And once that interpretation sets in, respect follows not as admiration, but as caution. And caution is the foundation of all durable respect, because it acknowledges that you are not easily moved, not easily cornered, and not easily replaced. And when people sense that, they stop testing you, because tests are only applied to things that are expected to yield. Number 8, the cost of always being available. Availability is the most underestimated form of weakness, because what is always accessible is never valued. And Machiavelli understood that power begins the moment others feel the risk of losing you, not emotionally but functionally, when your absence creates friction, delays outcomes, or exposes incompetence. And this is where good people quietly sabotage themselves by being too reliable, too responsive, too willing to step in before being asked, believing usefulness equals security, when in reality, usefulness without scarcity turns you into infrastructure, not authority, something depended on but never respected, because systems protect leaders and exhaust utilities. And when you make yourself endlessly available, you remove all urgency to treat you well, to compensate you fairly, or to consider your limits, since urgency only exists where access can be lost. And this is why powerful individuals ration their presence, not out of arrogance, but out of strategy, because scarcity forces prioritization, and prioritization creates leverage. And Machiavelli warned that generosity without limits leads to resentment rather than loyalty, because people grow accustomed to what costs them nothing, and when it finally stops, they feel entitled to complain, not grateful for what was given. And this is the psychological trap of being good. You give early, often, and without conditions, hoping appreciation will accumulate. But appreciation does not compound. It evaporates, while expectation compounds relentlessly, and soon your refusal feels like betrayal to those who benefited freely from your compliance. And this is when guilt becomes the final chain, locking you into roles you never chose, responsibilities you never agreed to, and standards that only apply to you. And breaking free requires an uncomfortable recalibration, learning to delay responses, to decline without explanation, to let small failures occur without rushing to fix them, because each unrescued moment teaches others that your presence is not guaranteed, and this lesson restructures dynamics faster than any confrontation. And Stoic discipline makes this possible by severing your need to be needed, by grounding your identity in self-command rather than external validation. Because the man who does not fear being disliked can finally negotiate from strength. And once you reclaim control over your availability, you stop being consumed by systems and start being consulted by them. Because power does not chase approval, it withholds access. And those who understand this stop losing not by doing more, but by being less reachable. Number 9, why silence makes people nervous. Silence is dangerous because it removes information, and Machiavelli knew that people fear what they cannot read more than what they openly oppose, because opposition has shape, tone, and intention, while silence forces imagination to do the work, and imagination almost always exaggerates threat. And this is why good people lose ground when they rush to explain themselves, to clarify intentions, to correct misunderstandings, believing transparency will calm situations, when in reality transparency often disarms you while arming others with insight into your limits, your fears, and your priorities. And power never reveals itself fully. It observes first, letting others expose their motivations through impatience, defensiveness, or overconfidence. And silence creates that pressure because when you do not respond immediately, when you do not justify your position, when you allow ambiguity to linger, people begin to reveal more than they intend, filling the gap with assumptions, concessions, or attempts to regain control. And Machiavelli understood that the man who speaks least often controls the frame, because conversation is a negotiation of meaning, and whoever sets the pace sets the terms. And good people tend to surrender this advantage by over-participating, by correcting every false impression, by trying to be understood instead of being respected, unaware that understanding is optional but consequence is not. And silence, when paired with consistency, signals self-possession, the sense that you are not scrambling for approval or reacting to pressure, but choosing your moments deliberately. And this unsettles those who rely on emotional reactions to gain leverage, because they cannot calibrate their strategy without feedback. And when feedback is denied, they hesitate, and hesitation is the opening power needs. And Stoic discipline sharpens this tool by teaching restraint, the ability to sit with tension without dissolving it through words, to let others experience uncertainty without rescuing them from it, because uncertainty destabilizes manipulative dynamics faster than confrontation ever could. And once people realize that silence from you is not confusion, but control, their behavior shifts. They tread more carefully, they test less aggressively, and they reveal more honestly. And this is why silence is not weakness, but strategy, not avoidance, but command. Because the man who does not rush to speak has already decided that his position does not need defending, and that quiet certainty is often louder than any argument. Number 10, the final selection. Why good men must evolve. At the end of every hierarchy, every system, every unspoken game, there is a quiet selection process taking place, not based on morality, talent, or effort, but on resilience, awareness, and consequence. And Machiavelli understood that the world does not eliminate good men. It sidelines those who refuse to adapt, those who cling to innocence in environments that reward perception and leverage. Because goodness that does not evolve becomes obsolete, not tragic, just irrelevant. And this is the final reason good people lose. They stop at intention while others continue to strategy, and life moves forward without waiting for fairness to catch up. And the moment you accept this, something hardens inside you. Not into bitterness, but into clarity, because clarity ends self-betrayal. It ends the habit of sacrificing position for approval. It ends the illusion that being morally right guarantees survival, and stoic masculinity completes this evolution by demanding self-mastery above all else. Mastery over impulse, over ego, over the need to be liked, because the man who governs himself cannot be governed easily by others. And this is where power becomes quiet, internal, and stable. No longer reactive, no longer desperate to prove goodness, but grounded in the certainty that you can walk away, withhold, confront, or escalate when required, and still sleep at night because your values are no longer weapons used against you. They are tools you deploy selectively. And Machiavelli's real lesson was never about cruelty. It was about realism, the understanding that the world rewards those who see it clearly, not those who wish it were different. And once you see clearly, you stop losing without becoming ruthless. You stop sacrificing without becoming cold, and you stop explaining yourself to people who benefit from misunderstanding you. And this is the final choice placed in front of every good man. Remain morally comfortable and strategically exposed, or become morally grounded and strategically untouchable. Because power does not ask whether you are good, it asks whether you are prepared. And if this message sharpened your awareness, unsettled something you can no longer ignore, then like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because in a world that quietly punishes naivete and rewards awareness, staying sharp is not optional, it's survival.